Awakening the Titan. The salvage ship Wandering Star drifted through the debris field at the edge of the Carthage Nebula, its sensors probing the eternal night for anything of value. Captain Relevzin, a veteran Centaurian with silver-scaled skin, watched her crew work with practiced efficiency. After 20 years of salvage operations, she thought she'd seen everything the void could offer. She was wrong. Captain, her sensor officer's triple hearts must have been racing, judging by the tremor in his voice. Mass reading at coordinates 227 Mark IV. It's massive. Through the forward viewport, illuminated by the nebula's ethereal glow, a shape began to take form. At first, it appeared to be just another piece of space debris, but as the wandering star drew closer, its true scale became apparent. The object was easily 3 kilometers long, its hull bearing the scars of ancient battles and centuries adrift. By the first star, Rella whispered, "Is that what I think it is?" Her first officer, Kex, manipulated the sensor controls with his 4-fingered hands. Design matches no known configuration in our database, but look at the hull markings. That's pre-Dominion script. As their floodlights swept across the derelict's hull, faded letters became visible. UES Phoenix, a human vessel, Rella breathed. The words felt like forbidden knowledge in her mouth. Humanity was little more than a legend now, tales of a species that had reached for the stars before vanishing into myth 3 centuries ago. The Astral Dominion had worked hard to erase their memory, but salvagers knew the stories. "Ma'am," Kex's voice dropped to a whisper, "regulations require us to report this to the Dominion immediately." Rella's silver scales flickered with indecision. The reward for reporting such a find would be substantial, but something about this felt different. Before she could respond, her ship's systems suddenly flickered. Multiple power signatures detecting. Her engineer shouted, "The vessel, it's powering up." Aboard the Phoenix, deep in its central core, an artificial intelligence designated ARIA stirred to life. Its quantum processors, powered by technology far beyond current Dominion understanding, began their boot sequence. Emergency protocols that had lain dormant for centuries activated. In the vast cryogenics bay, hundreds of stasis pods hummed to life. Inside one of them, Captain Isabella Martinez's consciousness slowly returned from its centuries-long slumber. Her dark eyes snapped open as the pod systems began the revival process. Aria's voice, calm and clear, echoed through the ship's corridors. Emergency Protocol Delta 7 initiated. Detecting unknown vessel in proximity. Beginning crew revival sequence. Priority 1. Command Staff. Martinez gasped as the pod opened, her lungs burning as they remembered how to breathe. Her first officer, Commander James Reese, was being revived in the pod next to her. Around them, other pods were activating in sequence, bringing back the Phoenix's crew of 1,500. ARIA. Martinez managed to croak, her throat dry from centuries of disuse. Status report. Captain Martinez, welcome back. Current date is Galactic Standard Year 2754. The Phoenix has been adrift for 297 years, 4 months, and 12 days. All critical systems are operational. Ship's integrity at 92%. Current location: uncharted space near astronomical formation designated as Carthage Nebula. Martinez steadied herself against her pod as her legs remembered their function. Commander Reese was now fully awake, along with her Chief Tactical Officer, Lieutenant Commander Rajesh Patel, and Chief Engineer Dr. Victoria Santos. "Nearly 300 years, Reese whispered, his voice hoarse. "Everyone we knew." Later, James, Martinez cut him off gently but firmly. "Ariah, you said there's an unknown vessel." Affirmative. Small craft, approximately 200 meters in length. Crew of 12. Non-human life signs detected. They appear to be a salvage vessel. Martinez's military training kicked in, pushing aside the existential horror of their situation. Tactical status. All weapon systems online. Shields at 89% capacity. We maintain significant technological superiority over the salvage vessel. On the wandering star, Rella watched in amazement as sections of the massive human warship began to illuminate. Running lights traced along its hull, weapons ports cycled open and closed in diagnostic sequences, and massive engine arrays pulsed with energy that her sensors couldn't even classify. "Captain," her communications officer called out, "we're being hailed." Rella straightened her uniform. First contact with a legend. On screen, the face that appeared on her view screen was strikingly similar to the ancient human depictions she'd seen in forbidden historical texts. The woman wore a crisp black uniform with silver trim, her dark hair pulled back in a regulation knot, her expression commanding but not hostile. "This is Captain Isabella Martins of the United Earth ship Phoenix. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourself." Rella felt her scales ripple with excitement and fear. "I am Captain Rella Tizin of the independent salvage vessel Wandering Star." "Captain Martins, you're human." "Last time I checked," Martins replied with what might have been humor. "Captain Tizin, I find myself in need of information. My crew and I have been in stasis for nearly 3 centuries. I would appreciate a full briefing on the current political situation in this sector of space." Rella's triple hearts pounded. This was far beyond anything covered in salvage protocols. "Captain, with respect, humanity is. You're considered extinct. The Astral Dominion controls most of known space now. They won't be happy to learn of your existence." Martinez's expression hardened slightly. "And why is that, Captain Tizin?" "Because," Rella replied, her voice barely above a whisper, "they're the ones who helped wipe humanity out after the Great Sleep began." Martinez exchanged glances with her officers before turning back to the screen. Then, "Captain Tizin, I believe we have much to discuss. Would you be willing to come aboard? You have my word as an officer that no harm will come to you or your crew." Rella knew this decision would change everything: her life, her crew's lives, possibly the entire galaxy's future. But standing before this living legend, how could she refuse? "I would be honored, Captain Martins. Though I should warn you, once the Dominion learns of this, they will come in force." Martinez's smile was razor sharp. "Let them come, Captain. Humanity has been sleeping long enough." Politics of fear. The Grand Chamber of the Astral Dominion buzzed with agitation. Hundreds of representatives from dozens of species gathered in the massive amphitheater, their voices a cacophony of different languages as they debated the impossible news. High Chancellor Vex Thor, his crystalline form shifting colors with anxiety, called for order. "The reports are confirmed," he announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. "A human warship has been discovered, fully operational, with a living crew." The chamber erupted again. A Meridian delegate, her bioluminescent tentacles flashing with anger, rose to speak. "Impossible. We ensured their extinction centuries ago." "Evidently not thoroughly enough," replied Ambassador Catal of the Self-Confederation, his ethereal form rippling with concern. "The question now is what we do about it." Aboard the Phoenix, Captain Martinez watched the diplomatic feeds with growing anger. The Wandering Star's databases had provided them with full access to current galactic communications networks, and what they learned was infuriating. "They rewrote history," Commander Reese growled, watching alongside her. "Made us into monsters who destroyed ourselves." Martinez nodded grimly. "While systematically hunting down our colonies and erasing all evidence of their crimes." She turned to Dr. Santos, who was analyzing the Dominion's technical capabilities. "What's your assessment, Victoria?" "Their technology has advanced," Santos replied, her fingers dancing over holographic displays. "But not as much as it should have. They've been suppressing innovation, keeping their member species dependent on centralized control. The Phoenix is centuries old, but we're still significantly ahead in key areas." Lieutenant Commander Patel spoke up from his tactical station. "We're picking up multiple fleet movements, Captain. The Dominion is mobilizing." "Let them come," Martins replied, her voice steel. AI, begin Phase 2. The AI's response was immediate, initiating deep scan of all Dominion communications, searching for evidence of surviving human colonies. On the bridge of the Wandering Star, now docked within the Phoenix's massive hangar bay, Rella watched in amazement as the human warship systems worked at speeds her technology couldn't match. She had chosen to ally with the humans, knowing she could never go back to her old life now. "Captain Martinez," she called over the comm. "I'm detecting encrypted transmissions from a sector my people always considered restricted. The Dominion claims it's a quarantine zone, but..." Martinez smiled. "But it could be something else entirely." "Well done, Captain Tizin. Araya, focus your scan on that sector." "Multiple biosignatures detected," Araya announced moments later. "Genetic markers. Human." The bridge fell silent. They weren't alone. Hidden agenda. The quarantine zone turned out to be a carefully constructed lie. Behind layers of sensor interference and patrol routes lay 3 star systems, each containing thriving human colonies. The descendants of those who had escaped the Dominion's purge had survived, hidden but not destroyed. The Phoenix moved silently through space, its advanced stealth systems making it invisible to Dominion sensors. Captain Martinez stood on her bridge, watching the tactical display as her ship approached New Eden, the largest of the hidden colonies. "Multiple orbital defense platforms," Paddle reported. "Primitive by our standards, but they've managed to maintain some level of technology, despite the isolation. They'll be watching for Dominion ships," Reese noted. "We need to make our approach carefully." Martinez nodded. "Araya, open a tight beam communication channel. Let's introduce ourselves to our long-lost family." The response was immediate and emotional. The colonial leadership had maintained their history, passing down the truth of humanity's near extinction through generations. The arrival of the Phoenix wasn't just a reunion. It was the fulfillment of a centuries-old promise that humanity would rise again. But even as plans were made and defenses coordinated, the Dominion was moving. High Chancellor Vexthor had dispatched his most trusted agent, Inquisitor Naztul, to deal with the human problem once and for all. Breaking chains. The first battle caught the Dominion completely off guard. They had expected to find a single, isolated warship. Instead, they faced a coordinated defense network of 3 star systems, led by technology they'd barely understood. The Phoenix moved like a dancer through space, its energy weapons cutting through Dominion shields as if they were paper. Colonial defense ships, quickly retrofitted with Phoenix technology, proved equally devastating. "Multiple Dominion capital ships approaching," Patil announced, his hands steady on the tactical controls. "They're trying to surround us." Martinez smiled. "Just as we planned. Araya, execute battle pattern Delta." The Phoenix's response was beautiful and terrible to behold. Its phase drive, technology the Dominion had never mastered, allowed it to appear and disappear at will, striking from impossible angles. Dominion ships fell one after another, their crews evacuating in panic. On a dozen worlds across Dominion space, the truth began to spread. The story of humanity's survival, their resistance against extinction, sparked something that the Dominion had long feared: hope. Dawn of reunion. The final battle took place where it all began, in orbit around Earth itself. The planet still bore the scars of ancient wars, but signs of life had begun to return. The Phoenix led a fleet of colonial ships and defecting Dominion vessels, those who had chosen to stand against tyranny. High Chancellor Vexthor's flagship, the Eternal Dawn, hung in space alongside the remnants of his once mighty fleet. His crystalline form had darkened with rage and fear. "You cannot undo centuries of order," he broadcast across all frequencies. "The galaxy requires control, structure." "No," Martinez replied, her voice carried to every ship in both fleets. "What the galaxy needs is freedom. The freedom to grow, to innovate, to live without fear. That's what humanity always represented, and what you tried to destroy." The battle that followed would be remembered for generations. The Phoenix, its hull scared but unbroken, led the charge. Colonial ships and their Dominion allies struck from all sides, their crews fighting not just for victory, but for a new future. When it was over, the Eternal Dawn was a drifting wreck, and Vexthor was taken into custody. The Phoenix hung in orbit around Earth, its mission finally complete. Captain Martinez stood in her ready room, watching her homeworld slowly rotate below. Commander Reese joined her, holding 2 glasses of real, colonial-made whiskey. "To the future," he said, offering her a glass. Martinez took it, smiling. "To humanity, and to all those who choose to stand with us." On worlds across the galaxy, people looked up at their skies with new hope. The legend of humanity had become reality, and with it came the promise of a better tomorrow. The Phoenix had done more than save its people. It had awakened a galaxy. In the ship's ag core, ARIA began calculating orbital restoration patterns for Earth. The long night was over. It was time for humanity to come home. The end. Echoes of power. The restoration of Earth proceeded faster than anyone had anticipated. 6 months after the fall of the Dominion, the Phoenix's advanced terraforming technology had already begun to heal centuries of damage. Green patches were visible from orbit, spreading like hope across the scared surface of humanity's homeworld. But peace, as Captain Martinez had learned, was often more complicated than war. She stood in the newly established Unity Chamber, a vast hall constructed from the remnants of the Dominion's Grand Chamber. Representatives from both former Dominion worlds and the liberated human colonies filled the room. The tension was palpable. "The humans cannot be allowed to maintain a technological monopoly," demanded Representative Kolvar, a hegemony leader whose people had once been the Dominion's primary enforcers. His scaled face showed barely contained rage. "The Phoenix's capabilities must be shared equally." Martinez watched as Admiral James Reese, newly promoted, handled the diplomatic exchange. She'd chosen him as humanity's representative for his combination of military experience and unexpected diplomatic skill. "The Phoenix's technology will be shared," Reese assured the chamber, "but in stages. We've all seen what happens when advanced technology is distributed without proper safeguards." In the 6 months since the revolution, several former Dominion worlds had already nearly destroyed themselves fighting over salvaged tech. The Phoenix's AI, ARIA, had predicted this possibility with disturbing accuracy. A soft chime in Martinez's neural implant indicated an urgent message from Dr. Santos. "Captain, we've detected something. You need to see this immediately." Martinez quietly excused herself from the chamber, making her way to the Phoenix's new primary research lab. The ship now served as both humanity's flagship and its most advanced research facility. Dr. Santos didn't look up from her holographic displays as Martinez entered. "Remember those anomalous energy readings we detected during the final battle? We finally decoded them." She waved her hand, expanding the display. "They're not Dominion tech. They're not even from this galaxy." Martinez felt her breath catch as she studied the readings. "You're saying?" "We're not alone," Santos confirmed. "These signatures suggest observation. Someone's been watching everything that's happened. Someone far more advanced than either us or the Dominion." Before Martinez could respond, Aria's voice filled the lab. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple spatial anomalies forming at the edge of the solar system." Energy signatures matched Dr. Santos' readings. Martinez's military training kicked in instantly. "Battle stations. Alert Admiral Reese and the Unity Chamber. But keep it quiet. No general alarm yet." As she strode toward the bridge, Martinez felt a familiar mix of tension and excitement. The Phoenix had helped humanity reclaim its place in the galaxy, but perhaps that was just the beginning. They'd proven themselves against the Dominion. Now they might face something far beyond their experience. "ARIA, show me the anomalies," she ordered as she entered the bridge. The main view screen lit up, displaying multiple points of swirling energy at the system's edge. They were beautiful and terrifying. Tears in space itself that seemed to defy the laws of physics as humans understood them. Analysis suggests these are controlled formations. Araya reported. They appear to be doorways. Martinez watched as the first object emerged from the nearest anomaly. It was unlike anything she'd ever seen, a ship that seemed to be made of light and shadow simultaneously, moving with impossible grace. Her neural implant chimed again. This time, it was relic, who had become humanity's primary advisor on galactic affairs. Captain, there are stories, legends from before the Dominion, about beings who seeded our galaxy with life and then departed to watch our development. Looks like they're done watching, Martins replied, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. RIA, open all channels, all frequencies. Let's introduce ourselves. As the mysterious vessel approached, Martinez felt the weight of history on her shoulders once again. Humanity had survived extinction, overthrown an empire, and begun to rebuild. Whatever came through those portals, whether they brought peace or war, would find that humans were ready. The Phoenix's running lights illuminated, its advanced weapons powered but not targeting, its posture one of readiness rather than aggression. They had learned from their past, but weren't bound by it. This is Captain Isabella Martins of the United Earth ship Phoenix, representing the newly formed Galactic Unity Council. We welcome peaceful contact, but stand ready to defend ourselves if necessary. This is Captain Isabella Martins of the United Earth ship Phoenix, representing the newly formed Galactic Unity Council. We welcome peaceful contact, but stand ready to defend ourselves if necessary.